Let's humble ourselves and pray. In the book of Genesis, God created the world, and after creation, he saw everything was beautiful, and he was pleased with what he did. Among the things he created were the waters, the animals that are part of the tourism sector. So this morning, I just want to give glory to God for the gift of life, for the Ministry of Tourism, and for each and everyone who is here today, because you're the custodians. God gave authority to take care of whatever he created in the world, mostly the wildlife. So Father, in the name of Jesus, we bless you this morning. We thank you for the gift of life. We thank you for each and every person that you've brought here peacefully. And we pray that, Lord, we thank you also for our country, Uganda, which is the Garden of Eden that was created in the Bible, in the first book of Genesis. We pray that, Lord, you give us the responsibility and the authority to take care of what you've given us. We thank you for our beautiful country. We thank you for each and everything we see in this country, well endowed with beautiful flora and fauna. Father, this day we want to dedicate it into your hand, that you'll take care of it. We pray for a colorful day. We pray for your guidance and direction. Bless each and every one. For the glory of your name we've prayed. Amen.
Thank you so much, Madam Harriet, for that wonderful word of prayer. As we take our seats, may I also welcome the Executive Director, Kampala Capital City Authority. You're most welcome, Madam. Thank you for coming to join us. Members, I do encourage you all to take your seats as we begin the business of today. Today is World Tourism Day, and we're excited to begin off the events of today with a discussion on a very important topic, rethinking tourism. That is the theme of our discussion this morning. And to set the ball rolling, of course, I will first of all welcome and request our Permanent Secretary to come and give the welcome remarks to you all. Then we proceed and also request her to invite the Honorable Minister to give his opening remarks for this conference. Madam Doreen Katsime, you're most welcome.
The Honorable Minister of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, Honorable Tom Butime, Members of Parliament present. Our guest of honor is not yet here, but we will start. The UNDP Deputy Res Rep, Executive Director, KCCA. I think we have Deputy Executive Director, Uganda Airlines. We have several captains of industry here. Honorable Daudi Migereko, Chairman, UTB. Mrs. Susan Muwezi, Vice Chairperson. I don't know if we have other board members of our agencies, our executive directors, ministry and its agencies, members of the private sector who drive this sector. You are all most welcome. Today, of course, is World Tourism Day. And this day is celebrated ever since September 1980. We celebrate on the 27th of September since 1980 as World Tourism Day. It is an occasion marking the achievements of the industry as well as projecting the future of the sector. The theme this year, as most of you are aware, is Rethinking Tourism. And as we are all aware, we are just coming out of the COVID pandemic. And this crisis was coupled with other challenges of natural disasters, floods, landslides, and other challenges over the globe. Now, the theme of Rethinking Tourism is therefore timely and opportune at a time when the world has fully opened up. This conference has convened us as government, as development partners, as the private sector, as other agencies of government to contemplate the strategic direction of tourism in this era. Tourism is on a recovery trend, but we all agree that we ought to do a lot to double our efforts in achieving this growth, and we cannot do it alone. We thank our partners, most especially those who have supported this conference. In a special way, I would like to recognize UNDP. I would like to recognize the World Bank through the Competitiveness and Enterprise Development Project, who have supported this. I would like to recognize WWF, PSFU, KCCA, Smart Card Foundation, and all those that have supported this event. And of course, Sheraton Hotel, our partner as well. It is a challenging time for government at this time, and therefore, this support comes in very, very timely, and we deeply appreciate. We welcome the tourism program partners, and we know that we are looking forward to listening to the different panel discussions, the discussants, the panelists, and gaining from your knowledge and experience. It will be quite a long day full of exciting activities, and we all look forward to having a great interaction with all of you. I thank you all for coming, and I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome the Minister to deliver his opening remarks. Thank you.
The Permanent Secretary, Minister of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, the Deputy Resident Representative, UNDP, Executive Director, KCCA, the Chairman, Board of Directors, Uganda Tourism Board, and the Deputy, distinguished friends who are here, partners in tourism and conservation, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to this very, very important function, the 27th of September, World Tourism Day. September 27th is World Tourism Day. On this day, the entire tourism fraternity focuses on the progress and challenges of the industry. And in a special way, we celebrate the power of tourism in transforming the socio-economic landscape of the world. The chosen theme, as already pronounced by the PS when she was here, is Rethinking Tourism. And it underscores the importance of tourism in the socio-economic transformation of the country and the need to refocus the development strategy in the wake of the post-COVID pandemic. Tourism, to me, is really like a living organism. It's fragile, sensitive to disruptions. It recovers, then it lives on, it peaks, it becomes vibrant, and it takes off like that. Uganda, and indeed the whole world over, has most recently had the misfortune of dealing with one or more of these disruptions. And even as we talk today, there is some disruption outside there. The theme is therefore an opportunity as we recover from the most consequential health crisis of our time. The environment disaster of increased water levels are now receding, and the electoral cycle in the region, in the East African region, peacefully completed. Now we are stabilizing. Worldwide, the tourism economy is opening, and all destinations are scrambling to regain the lost share. This is very important, to regain that lost share, and we must fight for it. The competition for the visitors is now very high, and we need to be more innovative and aggressive to survive in this new dispensation. I'm glad that the composition of participants in this conference comprises the sectors and key drivers of the tourism economy. And I welcome the public sector leadership, the captains of the industry that invest and operate in the sector, the development partners that support our efforts, and the academia that analyze the trends and propose new approaches to development and the development of the sector and the industry. We need this congregation to reassess the status quo, reboot tourist economy, and think our strategic direction in driving growth and development. Our discussion today covers a number of topical areas, including the smart city tourism, new approaches to job creation, harnessing opportunities through digital innovations. This rethink of tourism should stimulate us to draw strategic interventions that will guide the sector growth moving forward. I'm glad that we shall be receiving distinguished friends, and some of them are ministers in the government of Uganda. Our main presenter is going to be the Honorable Frank Tumwebaze, colleague, and has served in a number of portfolios in Uganda, very, very vibrant. He's been minister in Kampala Capital City Authority, as you know very well, and that explains maybe the presence of the executive director. He has also been a minister of ICT. He was recently Minister for Gender, Labor, and Social Development. And now he's Minister of Agriculture, Animal Industry, and Fisheries, and he's an investor. And he's also a very active investor in this sector. We look forward to the perspectives you draw from this experience and passion in the industry to set the pace for discussion. And I'm sure he's about to get here. Ministers don't get late. They are always delayed. They are delayed. They don't get late, they are delayed. So he's delayed. As a sector, we are on the path of rethinking tourism, and already our efforts have started bearing fruits. For instance, we have intensified our domestic tourism drives with the aim of creating awareness about the beauty of this country and encouraging the locals to tour their country. As the young lady who was praying here, the pastor, when she was praying, you could see how much she knows already about her country, Kiza, who was here. At the beginning of this year, we launched the Pearl of Africa destination brand as a strategy to communicate and improve Uganda's visibility in the domestic and international market. This brand has received positive reception, and the initiative has won accolades like the 2022 Grand Prix Award and the International Tourism Film Festival, ITFF, Africa. We embrace and call upon the world to explore Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. There is a positive trend in the recovery of tourism numbers visiting the country and consequently the tourist receipts. An 8.4% recovery was registered 2021 and the outlook is positive 2022. Since the reopening of the economy, a number of promotional initiatives have been made by the private sector. We congratulate these efforts, we applaud them, and encourage more in this drive to recover the market. As you all know, the financial year started on a difficult economic footing for all government. We therefore extend our gratitude to the development partners and allow me to particularly thank the United Nations Development Programme, SEDEP, WWF, and PSFU MasterCard for your support in making this event succeed. I wish you fruitful deliberations and urge all participants to freely exchange knowledge, experiences to enable us achieve the mission to become Africa's most preferred destination. I declare the conference open and urge you all to explore Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. Nabashukuru. Thank you. Asante zaidi. Thank you.
I think we need another round of applause to that remark opening this conference, and we thank you, Honorable Minister, for the vision and guidance you've set for this conference. We thank you once again for opening the door for the discussion all to begin. I want at this point to invite the Deputy Resident Representative for UNDP, Madam Sheila Ngaita, to give her remarks. You're most welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner. The Minister of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, Honourable Members of Parliament present here today, the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, the Executive Director of KCCA, the Chairman and the Vice Chair of UTB, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed, good morning. Good morning and happy Tourism Day. Yes, thank you. On behalf of the United Nations Development Programme and indeed our larger United Nations family, I am delighted to join you today as we stand together to commemorate the United Nations World Tourism Day under the theme Rethinking Tourism. Allow me to extend a vote of thanks, Honorable Minister, to the Government of Uganda, and in particular to the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, for generously inviting UNDP to co-host with you this national commemoration. I also thank each one of you for making the time to participate in this national celebration. I bring you greetings from Madame Elsia Tafua, the United Nations Development Program resident representative, who is out of the country on official business. But she is celebrating with us today. This World Tourism Day 2022 is a unique occasion to amplify the conversation about the sector's role in economic recovery and growth. It is an opportunity for a diverse range of tourism stakeholders, including the public sector, media, academia, development partners, and businesses, to celebrate achievements, to share best practices, and to explore how they can be more inclusive as the tourism industry regains its growth momentum. Honorable Minister, distinguished guests, before the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, the tourism industry had demonstrated its resilience and job creation capacity, that it was a powerful lever to fight against poverty and to promote the social and economic inclusion of all groups. COVID-19 pandemic has had a devastating social and economic impact in all countries. And even here in Uganda, the economy has also been significantly impacted, with an additional 300,000 persons falling into poverty. And this is from official statistics. The tourism industry has not been spared and continues to suffer. And we are all now watching what happens with this Ebola outbreak and its impact on the sector. Historically, tourism has shown a strong ability to adapt, to innovate, and to recover from adversity. And while domestic tourism continues to drive recovery of the sector, in Uganda, international tourism is also experiencing a strong rebound, with tourist arrivals increasing. 521,000 tourist arrivals were recorded in 2021. With the right policies and programs and an enabling environment, tourism can once again provide decent jobs, contribute to building resilient, sustainable, gender equal, inclusive economies and societies that work for everyone. UNDP commends the government of Uganda for the efforts to bolster the tourism industry. Notably, the institutionalization of COVID-19 resilient tourism marketing strategy, curated to enhance market presence in key source markets and to create destination awareness in domestic, regional, and international markets. The government has also put in place a stimulus package to provide structured business recovery and resilient support for the tourism private sector. Additionally, the government has provided a 2-year waiver of the value-added tax to upcountry hotels, and also the promotion of domestic tourism through the digital-led Take on the Pearl of Africa campaign as a mechanism to cushion and revive the industry amidst shocks of this nature. These are all commendable efforts. So, Honorable Minister, distinguished guests, this year's theme of Rethinking Tourism prompts all of us to reflect and reassess where tourism is going, where we want it to go, and how we want it to get there. We must all collectively learn from the lessons in the past, especially now that the world is opening up again and international tourism is making a progressive rebound. World Tourism Day affords us the opportunity to look beyond tourism statistics and acknowledge that behind every number there is a person. So this means putting people and planet first and bringing all stakeholders together, including local communities, around a shared vision for a more sustainable, inclusive, and resilient sector. Allow me to share a few thoughts on how UNDP is, within the framework of our country program for Uganda, within the framework of the United Nations Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework 2021 to 2025, which is aligned to the 3rd National Development Plan, how we are complementing and co-creating and scaling up nature and technology-based solutions to accelerate efforts to overcome the disruption that was occasioned by COVID. One, UNDP is partnering with the private sector to deploy solutions and responses that mitigate the socio-economic impacts of the pandemic on businesses, jobs, and livelihoods, especially among the youth and women. We have, as UNDP, invested close to $1.5 million in supporting youth and women-owned tourism, micro, small, and medium enterprises to develop and implement innovative products and solutions that aid recovery from the impact of the COVID pandemic. Two, COVID-19 revealed the need to rethink the competitiveness and resilience models of the tourism industry. So UNDP has partnered with the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, Uganda Tourism Board, Uganda Wildlife Authority, the private sector and cultural institutions to harness nature and culture, to diversify Uganda's tourism product range and build a resilient tourism industry. Three, UNDP is also fostering platforms for inclusive dialogue to identify solutions to realize the potential of tourism as a vehicle for recovery. Through these platforms, the message of tourism as an inspirational and transformational force is amplified to ensure that tourism is a central part of policy making and solutions to realign tourism for the future are co-created. UNDP has also supported new products. For example, the promotion of mountain tourism as a means for environmental protection and promoting ecotourism, including support to new products like the just concluded the first ever Rwenzori Marathon. So these are only some of the initiatives that we are working on with various stakeholders. Honorable Ministers, distinguished guests, in conclusion, I would like to reiterate UNDP's commitment to partner with the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, with Uganda Tourism Board, with all the stakeholders, all the development partners, to harness the power and potential of tourism to advance prosperity and drive inclusive, sustainable development in Uganda. Happy Tourism Day. I thank you.
Thank you once again, Madam Sheila Ngaita, for that good presentation, telling us the collaboration we have with the UNDP family. We thank you so much for the many interventions you've put into the tourism sector, and we really value that support. Ladies and gentlemen, as the presentation was going on, of course, our guest of honor, Honorable Frank Tumwebaze, also came, sorry about the sleep, did come in, and allow me to invite our Honorable Minister to officially welcome him and invite him to speak. Thank you.
As I mentioned in my statement, we were expecting Honorable Frank Tumwebaze to come and give his presentation. Honorable Frank Tumwebaze studied mathematics at the university. So he's a scientist. He should get a good salary. He is a member of parliament for Kibale East constituency, Kamwenge district, in Toro region. As you know, he was a minister in charge of KCCA, Minister ICT, Minister Gender, Labor, Social Development. He is today Minister for Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries. So I invite you to come and address us. Thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Tourism, Afanda Atenyi Utime, the Chairperson of the Board of UTB, Honorable David Magereko, the KCC Executive Director, the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Tourism, the Chairperson of the Hotel Association of Uganda, the Country Director of UNDP, or the Deputy, private sector investors in the tourism sector, ladies and gentlemen in your respective capacities, good morning. My apologies for coming late. We had a number of meetings, and I thank God that I'm able to be here. Thank you for a good theme of this day, rethinking tourism, trying to do things a little bit different, still aiming at the same goal. First of all, I want to congratulate you, Honorable Minister, and the PS and your team, and UTB for moving the sector some good steps ahead from where it was. We tend sometimes as Ugandans to emphasize what is not yet done, and we forget what has been achieved. And to me, tourism, it's all about those good vibes of positivity. That's what I would want to. In the rethinking, there's a need for more people to really celebrate what is there. If we concentrate on what we need, everywhere there's something lacking. Everywhere there's something to be improved on. So, me, with the rethinking, I want to comment on where I see already the rethinking has already taken place, and it's an achievement for us. For example, I became a member of parliament in 2006. This is about 16 years ago. I represent a constituency where you have one of the famous tourist resource, the Kibale National Park, which they call the primate capital of the world. But to be honest with you, even at my level as a member of parliament then, I did not understand the potential we had as a community, let alone as a country, of Kibale National Park. I had not even visited it. I did not understand the difference between the chimpanzee and the other. No, forget the gorilla. These other ones we find on the road. The common one are the what? The baboons. I didn't understand it. Yet I was a big person in the area. So to me, the first step is people's awareness, communities' awareness about tourism. And so everybody knows that Kibale Forest is our greatest resource as Toro Kingdom. People of Ankole in Bushenyi are beginning to say Kitagata as a great resource, isn't it? The recently concluded Kigezi Summit investments was nothing else but about tourism, the beauty of Kigezi, the hills, the valleys, the agricultural practices of the Banyachigezi, the terracing. All of those define the signature mark of our country. So, Honorable Minister and your PS and team, to give you comfort is that Ugandans are already rethinking on how to what showcase. We continue to see new products. New products. If I was really prepared, I would have brought you the video of the Ankole cow. I want to thank UTB for including the Ankole package in their content. Yes. I used to argue, if somebody pays to go and say buffalo, you know a buffalo, why wouldn't that person pay or be interested in seeing the Ankole cow? Why? Put here buffalo and put here the Ankole cow. I am sure Doreen would choose the Ankole cow. Yes. Or would want to see both because they are different, isn't it? then, colleagues, I see more domestic investment from local people, including ourselves, in the tourism sector. That's also an achievement. Yes, people no longer see these lodges as foreign lodges. When you say lodge, people now understand that this is here. Before Queen Elizabeth, people used to say, "Ezi lodges are Abajungu." Those are lodges of the Europeans. So we see more domestic people. Even the recently concluded Nyege Nyege, despite the controversial talk, which is among the issues we must talk about, how we communicate about our country. It was already built around tourism. Itanda Falls, Kaguru Hills, people from Bosoga have been promoting. So, the achievement one, you have more enhanced awareness, you have more products developed, and these products are derived from the way people live, their cultures, and the livelihood. Then these should be enough to occupy our tourists to stay more. Because you track the chimpanzees once, isn't it? Maybe the gorillas twice because of the distance. But the people selling the itineraries have much more to sell. They have much more to sell. You can now add on the Chitagata Spring. So when people have seen the fives in Queen Elizabeth, they can have this. So really, in the rethinking, emphasis should be put on what more do we have in addition to the God-given resources. Of course, even these ones are God-given. And so what should we do to enhance or build on these achievements? There is a strong linkage between tourism and agriculture, and we must leverage it. I made a strong argument in cabinet some time back when there was the debate of COVID, the definition of real economy. We worked with Honorable Butume to tell the people that tourism, without tourism, you have no market for eggs. Without tourism, you have no market for poultry, isn't it? When you are busy selling, I have nothing to beg the neighboring countries for, to buy the eggs. Because the demand internally will be stimulated by the capacity to buy. So we could profile farmers and communities that are ready to supply these lodges. When you go to Fort Portal, that market, Honorable Ateny, is Mugusu. Now, all the fresh stuff comes from Mugusu. Mugusu market. You could pick interest in it. So Mugusu market can be branded, can be given a tourism orientation in itself to be the food basket for the whole ecosystem of the players around there. Mugusu market. It's a one. Even from my home, if I want fresh stuff, I drive to Mugusu market, I buy. I am sure all the lodges around that area buy their food from Mugusu market. So I would request UTB, Mugusu market can be branded as the, we have our local radios there, they have their words. You would hear something like, Mukono Munyungu. Mukono Munyungu means you are putting your hand where food comes from. A nyungu is what? A kinag. Well, how do we say a nyungu in English? A pot. Okay, if that's the pot for food, because there's a pot for porridge, but there's a pot for food. So Mugusu can be the pot for food of all the tourism. You can take people and say, this is the market where the food you ate at Chimpundu, where the food you ate at Chaninga comes from. That can be a selling point. I want to thank you, the tourism players, the ministry, the OTO, and UTB, for pushing us government to give more incentives to the community. The VAT relief is welcome, and we congratulate you on it. We only pray that you continue to justify why it should stay. Because I am hearing people saying, this was a COVID relief. Kindly continue to put your voice. Continue to put your voice, and we also add our voice to see more infrastructure in the parks. We want to see more roads done in the wind area, because I believe windy I don't know what the numbers show or tell us, but you send more people to Windy, perhaps than any other park, if I'm not, I stand to be corrected. We want those roads in Rushaga, in Ruhija, worked on. This must be made, and we will give you support. My second point, we applaud you on the efforts of marketing, but I believe we need to do more harmonization. We need to understand what communication sells, what communication kills. What communication works, what communication kills. It's a struggle. For us in agriculture, when FMD hits the country, we get a problem with selling milk. We get a problem with selling beef. But sometimes our farmers make alarms which are false. They will tell you there is FMD in Karamoja, when actually it's another disease, isn't it? Same applies to human diseases. I think there is urgent need to discuss on how we communicate even the problems we have. Yes. Let's not blame game each other, but let's go to a room. Right Honorable Minister, I would request that you could be our whip. You invite the Minister of Information. You invite the players in the sector, the Hotel Association, the auto, and the Minister of Health, and because they also have their protocols on how they communicate the disease. But isn't there disease in the US? Isn't there disease in the European Union? How do they communicate it? Let us learn about this and agree honestly. Yes, the doctors want money to be increased. Where will the money come from? Tourism. Yes. So we must agree on this. And we must agree on this if it means the highest political authority to convene all of us into a room. Risk communication we must understand these things. Yes, yes. How do we tell the world that the few cases of Ebola we have encountered have been controlled, and that should not call for cancellations? Yes. Diseases are everywhere. We've seen viruses. How do we tell the world that when police is having rioters on the street, like we normally see in EU and elsewhere, that's not a widespread problem in the whole country? So that's a challenge I find, Honorable Minister, and I pledge my support to you on this communication aspect. The private sector people, don't be angry with government. Let's work together. Let's work together and discuss these issues. Yes. Don't be angry with the Ministry of Health, but we can criticize them. But please, come and we discuss. If you get a case of Ebola, treat it. Thank you so much. We shall support you. But Uganda is not under, the whole community of Uganda does not have Ebola. Then finally, trying to appeal to the media. Every country has political contradictions. Every citizen has a right to be angry with his government, isn't it? But you should not be angry with your country. You should not be. You can be angry with me, the Minister of Agriculture, for messing up the sector, isn't it? But you cannot be angry with the green, beautiful Uganda. Get rid of me out of it if I'm the problem. So this is the angle we need to. Even opposition people, they have business, don't they? They have hotels, don't they? So this is the conversation. We are able to support our commander, the Honorable Minister of Tourism, the PS, Madam Lira and the team, UA and the team, the Hotel Association of Uganda. We are able to discuss this. You need Ministry of Foreign Affairs, just like we need the media to be trained on this communication. You also need Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Why don't we have tourism ambassadors deployed, distinctly deployed? I was a Minister of Labor. We used to have labor attaches. I think they are But not every ministry has a tourism specific person. How I wish this can be. And it can be, as long as you are able to show the impact it creates to this. Uganda Airlines, it's part and parcel of our ecosystem of tourism, isn't it? Yes. I was being told by Chinese friends that starting the 19th of October, there will be a direct flight to Guangzhou. To Guangzhou. Yes. So that's a plus. Just imagine sitting here 9 hours to China and back. So let's give the Chinese that opportunity to come. I'm sure there will be one to London soon, because the rights to Heathrow were secured. So we need to agree with various actors. There must be a sectoral forum. Just like you hear something called JLOS, justice, law, order, something, sector. Police is there, internal affairs is there, the judiciary is there, because their actions infect each other. They keep infecting each other. So we need a forum, the tourism forum. I know we have this program working group of government, but this could be wider as a tourism forum. Investment should be part of this forum. Government efforts should be coordinated. And then we agree on what works for us. Tourism revenues are not only for tour operators, for heaven's sake. These revenues fund everybody. It funds directly the people employed in the value chain of tourism, but it comes to the national reserves. As agriculture, we are now intensifying large-scale commercial farming. We need a market. The domestic market, first and foremost, is always the most reliable and sustainable one. Then the others can come on board. Finally, we need to fund more, we need to put more money. Let's agree on a strategy, Right Honorable Minister, of giving you more money. Uganda's beauty is untold the way it should be more. We need to see this on CNN. We need to see this on BBC. We need to see this on Al Jazeera. How much is it? $10 million a year. Why shouldn't we give it? I am not lamenting. I believe we can do it, isn't it? Yes. If there is money from agriculture, you can chop from my ministry. As long as it is going, and this is how we can do it. If we give money to tourism, and they create more market for Uganda, why do I need money in agriculture to market agricultural produce? Why should we need money in trade when this collective marketing will be a plus for all of us? I think this is a case that we need to do, and if the private sector can do this and government does it, we can win. But most importantly, we must also appreciate the private sector people who put in their money to sell this country at private expos. Should really give them a round of applause. Because when they are there, I don't think they just sell their small businesses. They sell the bigger destination of our country. So, Honorable Minister, thank you for your invitation. One, I believe we now have a bigger tourism menu. The wildlife is a given, and it continues to be a marvel of the world. Two, the renewed interest of the people. I don't think UA is still facing any hostilities as it used to be. There is great appreciation of what tourism can do to the country. So the communities have bought in. It's a plus. We have more products. My only appeal to our tour operators, there is always a reluctance to include on your, this word which fits me, itinerary. There is always a reluctance to put our things in your itinerary. Of course, the other people don't like them. They don't like them because they don't know them. Put those unique things. You want to see the big five? Yes. There is more for you to see. See the dancing. Go and milk the cows. Peel the matoke. You get it? Mingo the kalo. Go to the falls. You know? So I also request you to engineer new ways of sailing magnify your itineraries, packages, such that you have more people staying over, you will have more sales to make, and we shall all be winners. I pledge my support to you, and as also a tourism investor, I pledge total compliance with the regulations of the sector. This is very important. For we developers, it's very important. When you are developing a lodge, adopt the green concept. Greening, the green architecture should be our principle. Whatever you are doing, be eco-friendly. I wish we can eliminate all of these bottles from our lodges. This can be a great idea. We shall be tourism smart, and everybody will appreciate our sector's needs. It's not our sector's needs, it's everybody's needs. I thank you.
I think we need another round of applause. Thank you so much, Honorable, for giving us that fresh perspective. I think the whole idea of getting somebody outside the sector to also give his own perspective of how tourism is moving was quite right and brilliant, and we've definitely benefited a lot from that. We've also learned that I think we need more people on the decision-making table who are invested into the sector in order for us to expand this conversation. We thank you so much, Honorable Frank Tumwebaze, for that wonderful presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to move forward, and right now we want to talk a little bit about smart tourism in this city of ours. And in that, I want to request and invite the Executive Director of Kampala Capital City Authority, Madam Dorothy Kisaka, to please come and share with us what KCCA has for us. You're most welcome.
The Honorable Minister of Tourism, Honorable Tom Butime, the Honorable Minister and our keynote speaker, Honorable Tumwebaze, the Honorable PS, the Honorable Chairman, Tourism Board and your Vice Chairperson, my sister Sheila, the representative from UNDP, distinguished guests and partners from the business community, I welcome you all to Kampala Smart City. And I want to start by saluting our very distinguished partner, the Sheraton Hotel, who have hosted us today, but with whom we share these smart premises which are in the middle of the city. We are talking about smart cities and tourism, and I just wanted to show you a picture of your city. This is Kampala City, people. This is not London. This is your city. And since the theme is rethinking tourism, we as Kampala City are saying we need to reposition the way we think about Kampala. We need to create a language, a collective consciousness in our city that speaks well of our city. We've baptized it Smart City, smart people living in a smart city. Rethinking is key to development. It is said that people who keep on doing the same thing every day expecting a different result as they do that are called insane. When we started this theme of smart city, people told us stop lying to yourselves. How can you call this city smart? But I am a person of faith, and Judeo-Christianity says, speak of those things which are not as though they are. Call them forth. So we are calling forth a smart city in all its infrastructure, among all its people, in all our 5 divisions of Kampala. I believe this is a vision that can unpack, not in the future, it can unpack in this generation. Nobody loves to do tourism in a dirty city. They visit cities because they are smart cities. So I believe, and that is my great call to this assembly this morning, that let's speak of our city as a smart city, not the other cities which we visited. We all recently visited London during the burial, during the death of Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth II. We visited on the screens and we enjoyed the beauty of the infrastructure. We want to unpack that smart city of Kampala in our generation. Can somebody agree with me? Yes. Why do we say smart city? This is a phrase we have articulated that meets the needs and expectations of city residents, and indeed our tourists. The phrase embraces our KCCA vision, which is to be a vibrant, attractive, and sustainable city, and our mission of delivering quality services to the people of Kampala. The phrase smart city is a strategy phrase to include every stakeholder in what we are doing. Our goal is that we shall create an appreciation around the 3 core pillars of a smart city. The 3 core pillars of a smart city, which we are championing in this campaign, are technology, infrastructure, and people. Technology, infrastructure, and people. And we're using the acronym of TIP, T-I-P, technology, infrastructure, and people. Under technology, we would like to make it easier for people to do business. KCCA technological applications, we place a strong emphasis on automation of processes in service delivery. We are so far applying technology in revenue collection, in development permits, in building permits, procurement, traffic administration, sanitation through the Weyonje app, city addressing, so that every house in the city can have a proper address, as opposed to saying next to the big fene or to the big mango tree, and also in health and education services. Our strategy is that each of our service directorates will leverage the use of technology, not as something as to be used in the future, but something to be used today. If you need a building permit, you can do it from the privacy of your home. If you need to know about our schools, you can do it from the privacy of your home. The second pillar is infrastructure. And here we are talking about a smart and clean city in all its infrastructure. You've noticed that we are removing illegal structures and decongesting the city, and we are creating alternative spaces for trade. The government has intentionally given us a budget so that we create new trading spaces so that people stop crowding the streets. We are calling upon citizens to take responsibility for their infrastructure in lighting, in painting, and others. We are also calling upon people to take care of their waste, of their rubbish. Smartness begins at home. The city is smart because the infrastructure you take care of, that I take care of, is smart. It's a collective responsibility. And our third pillar is people. And maybe this is the greatest emphasis in smart city and tourism. Why people? Smart people is about promoting a smart way of working with all city stakeholders. The city is like a family. We all come to the city to earn. We all come to the city because we want to advance commercially. So we want our various stakeholders in transport, the vendors on the streets, in the markets, the business people, the bar owners. We would like to work together in a smart way. We are right now getting a lot of complaints about noise pollution. And guess who it is coming from? You have guessed, it's coming from you. Somebody somewhere is not acting smart in the way they are doing business. It is good to have a bar, but why don't you regulate the noise? Because the city holds us all. We all come to sit to the city, we sleep in the city, you want to work in the city and have a bar, but you are allowing the noise pollution to be consumed by, by the people 3 kilometers from where you are doing it. That is not going to be allowed. And the smart cities and tourism, we are curbing down on noise pollution very, very strongly. We are saying, let's do it the smart way. There are smart ways of doing business, whatever business you are doing. Let's think, let's work, let's act, and let's talk smart. The city accommodates all of us, different types of people. We invite our guests, our tourists to a city that's working for all of us. We can coexist, and everyone should take responsibility. So those are the 3 pillars, the core pillars that we are working on to promote tourism in the city. And we are saying also that we need to encourage city-to-city tourism. I came across a very what's the word I should use? The way the governance is done in London is that they have an assembly which oversees what the political leaders, the mayors, are doing in the city. And in our discussion with the London Assembly chair, we were saying, let's do city tourism around governance, around the way we govern the cities. I can envisage us, Kampala, visiting Gulu, or Jinja visiting Mbarara, all the cities to learn and to share. And when, you know, a political leader visits, they don't go alone. Politicians travel with the whole city. They go with 2 buses, through 3 buses, learning about governance, but also visiting other cities so that we share what is the uniqueness in Jinja City, which we do not have in Kampala City. We are members of ASTON, African Smart Towns Network. This is a network of African cities that use digital tools to address local and global challenges. We are in partnership with various cities around Africa so that we promote the way our city works using digital tools. We are also members of WIGO, which is the World Smart Sustainable Cities Organization, which was established in 2010. It brings together cities and other local governments, smart tech solution providers, and national regional institutions committed to the transformation of cities into smart, sustainable cities. So we in Kampala City are saying we are going to work very closely with the Ministry of Tourism. As we speak now, we have signed the MOU for tourism development with Uganda World, UWA, and UTB. We are hosting and supporting tourism and social events to drive tourist traffic in the city. We are emphasizing the smartness in our infrastructure. We are about to launch a project worth $288 million worth to improve about 70 kilometers of road, improve lighting around the city, drainage, walkways, smart transport, the non-motorized walkway, flyovers, new roads, and traffic control systems. All these are geared towards positioning Kampala as a vibrant, attractive, and sustainable city. Kampala is an exciting capital with a lot of potential for tourism development. In the future, in the very, very near future, we will be launching a very exciting activity that we want to invite you to be part of, and that will be the Smart City Expo. At an opportune time, we'll speak more about this. But as I conclude, smart cities and tourism, it's not about infrastructure and it's not about technology, although those are core pillars. Smart cities and tourism is about you. It's about people. Ugandans are known as some of the most hospitable people. And we in Kampala, we want to champion that as a community, to be aware of ourselves and build a consciousness around the smart city, not around infrastructure only, but the way we think, the way we talk, the way we work, and the way we act. I thank you very much.
We're also getting safe these days. But allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to thank Madame Dorothy, Executive Director. Thank you so much for opening our eyes to what is available in the city. Where is the city going in terms of this whole new concept of smart tourism? It responds to many of the issues that the private sector really is clamoring about. A smart city in terms of good sanitation, in terms of good infrastructure, and also in terms of having the people around. We also know you're doing a lot in developing the tourism attractions in the city, working with the palaces, working with the museums, and also the Tourism Information Center, and we thank you so much for that work that is going on. Ladies and gentlemen, we're making good progress. We are moving into a panel discussion, but before that, we'd like also to learn a little bit about what program MasterCard Foundation has for us in as far as creating jobs, smart jobs. There is a program under PSFU MasterCard Foundation, and I would like to invite Madame Isabella Sabune from the MasterCard Foundation, PSFU, to briefly tell us about what you have for us before we now move into the panel discussion. I thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Honorable Minister for Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, Honorable Minister for Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries, Permanent Secretary for the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, the ED for KCCA, the Deputy Resident Representative, UNDP, Chairperson and Vice Chairperson, Uganda Tourism Board, and all protocols observed, distinguished guests, I welcome you to World Tourism Day 2022 once again. My name, as they've already said, is Isabella Sabune. I work for the Private Sector Foundation under a program sponsored by the MasterCard Foundation called Young Africa Works. So today I'll be talking very briefly about that program. But first and foremost, I'd like to send greetings on behalf of my Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Stephen Asimwe, who could not be here. He's at another engagement that was conflicting at the same time. I'd like to forward you greetings from my Project Director for Young Africa Works, Mr. Apollo Muyanja Mbazira, who is currently on leave, and therefore I am representing on their behalf. The Private Sector Foundation Uganda is Uganda's apex body for the private sector, made up of more than 300 business associations, corporate bodies, and the major public sector agencies that support private sector growth. Since its founding in 1995, PSFU has implemented a mandate focusing on creation of a conducive business environment that supports competitiveness by conducting policy research, advocacy, and by providing enterprise development, capacity building support to its members, and continues to sustain a positive dialogue with government on behalf of the private sector. It is in this regard that we're here today, supporting World Tourism Day. As I've mentioned, I work for a program called Young Africa Works that is supported by the MasterCard Foundation and run through the Private Sector Foundation. That's why I'm pretty young standing up here representing my bosses. However, let me explain a little bit about what Young Africa Works is. The MasterCard Foundation developed a strategy that outlines over the next decade, when it started, it will end in 2030, to focus on youth employment in Africa and reducing poverty through this strategy. It aims to employ over 30 million young people in Africa, particularly young women, to help them secure dignified and fulfilling work. In Uganda, this strategy is being implemented using the lead farm structure for youth employment interventions through PSFU. These interventions will enable up to 300,000 youth to secure direct, dignified, and fulfilling work. The lead farm structure will also create indirect opportunities for up to 260,000 people. This lead farm structure aims at bringing poor, secluded young women and men in dominated households into linked economically rewarding production activities, as well as catalyzing and placing micro, small, medium enterprises on a growth path to bigger companies themselves. The lead farm structure model is a hybrid value chain approach. It promotes market-led and production-linked horizontal and vertical chains that enable households to grow gradually and have more sources of income throughout the value chain. For tourism specifically, through statistics gained from UBOS, we aim at creating up to 70,000 jobs by 2024. Of course, this has been hindered a little bit by the COVID-19 pandemic, but we're still hopeful that we will reach somewhere close to this number. We're going to do this through bringing actors into lead farm structure and through skilling, product offering, and market development. Specifically, the intervention tools that will be applied is one, the business development services. This is defined as services that improve performance of the enterprise, its access to markets, and its ability to compete. This is the lead farm that I'm under the structure that I'm talking about. The definition of business development services includes a wide array of services, both strategic and operational. I'll cover this towards the end of my presentation. Why did we decide on business development services? It has been shown that business development services improve the performance of producer organizations and grow the micro, small, medium enterprises. The lead farm structure intervention is dependent on productive MSMEs and households that are compliant with the quality required in the sector, as well as the standards set by our policymakers. This leads to sustainable operations long after projects like this are gone. So BDS, or Business Development Services, cover an array of different support. I'll mention a few. There are two specific areas. One is market access. This covers marketing the business, market linkages, trade fairs, product exhibitions, development of samples for buyers, market information, subcontracting and outsourcing, market research, promotion and penetration, traceability, branding and packaging, and support with franchise and alliance setups, to mention a few. The other major one is for productivity and production, which covers management information systems, quality standards and certification systems, capacity building and training, accountancy and bookkeeping, records and information management, facilitating the establishment of bulk buying groups, environmental impact assessments, which I think are key, as the Honorable Minister mentioned. We're going in a green direction, as well as the smart city model, quality management systems, feasibility studies. Again, to mention a few, there are quite a lot. I'm happy to liaise more on the extreme list of BDS services that is provided for. However, this specific model, the lead farm structure model, focuses on support through these services. It is not a grant, give money based program. It aims at skilling, upskilling, creating market linkages, improving the value chain of our tourism sector through the things that I've mentioned. Before I leave, this is the direction in which MasterCard is going. However, I would like to mention that during COVID, there was a project under MasterCard Foundation called the COVID-19 Economic Recovery, Resilience and Response Program that offered support to the tourism sector through the Uganda Tourism Association. It did this through supporting MSMEs, as I've already talked about, to negate the negative shocks that would come after COVID-19. I think to date, over 59 MSMEs have been supported through Uganda Tourism Association, and more still go to Mr. Kawere on a daily basis sent by us for additional support. That is literally what we're doing at the MasterCard Foundation. Continuous improvement, public-private sector engagements are necessary. We are still learning. The lead farm structure model is new. It is only being implemented in Uganda under the Young Africa Works program within the whole of Africa. So we are a pilot program, and there is continuous improvement and continuous learning that is needed, and that only comes from us working together as both private and public sector players. Thank you for the opportunity to present.
Thank you once again, Madam Isabella Sabuni, for that elaborate presentation on the role and works of MasterCard Foundation. Indeed, we received a lot of support from the MasterCard Foundation during the COVID pandemic time, and the private sector did benefit extensively from that support. The lead farm structure will definitely help in entrenching and creating the jobs that we need in tourism. Thank you once again for that one. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as we move to close this particular session, I would like to invite the chairman of Uganda Tourism Board to come just and give a few remarks in appreciation of the presentations we have had this morning. Honorable Daudi Migerepo, you're most welcome.
The Honorable Minister of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, Honorable Tom Butime, our guest of honor for today, and the keynote speaker, Honorable Frank Tumwebaze, who is also Minister of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries, the Permanent Secretary, Madame Doreen Katsime, the UNDP Country Chief, the leaders of various organizations who are here with us, including my own board of UTB and management, WUA, Uganda UTTI, UWEC, I mean the entire tourism fraternity. This is our day, and I want to thank you for turning up in such good numbers. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. World Tourism Day is our day, and it brings all of us together, essentially to review what is happening in the industry and chart a way forward for the future, rethinking tourism. And this is what it is all about, and that is what we are supposed to be doing here today and the days ahead. And this year in particular is critical because tourism is rebounding after COVID. And the success hereafter is our duty and responsibility. Our duty and responsibility. Honourable Minister, I want to thank you for inviting Honorable Frank Tumwebaze to be our keynote speaker today. And why am I saying this? The industry or industries cannot grow when key decision makers don't understand what is happening in those industries. If they do not have an appreciation of what is happening in those industries, when critical debate comes up, they will not be able to clearly understand what the various stakeholders are talking about. By getting cabinet ministers to invest in our tourism industry, that is a major milestone accomplished. When you talk tourism in Kenya, it's like you are talking something that touches everybody in the country. Why? Because the leadership is heavily involved in tourism. And they encourage everybody to take interest in tourism. Ndugu Frank, kindly talk to our colleagues in cabinet, our colleagues in parliament, that there is an industry called tourism, and it is for all of us. It is for all of us, and I can tell you, if you do your work diligently and invest judiciously, you will have good returns. You will have good returns, and you'll be in a position to take care of yourself, your family, and your constituency. I thought I needed to give that message today, because if we do not, we shall be talking about the need for greater budgetary allocation, and we shall not get anybody to speak for us. We shall be talking about the need to cater for training in the sector, and people will not understand what we are talking about. You talked about VAT, and I was happy, because when we talked about VAT, there were some legislators who had invested and could easily understand that when you issue an invoice, URA starts counting days for VAT interest and VAT penalty. And they thought there was a problem with the law, and the law needed to be amended. Now, if we don't have such allies, we are finished. We are finished, and we are fighting for survival. I'm sure we shall be able to survive, that so many of you are now saying, what is there in tourism? Can't I also do something? And I can tell you, we are ready to work with you as partners so that we can be in a position to push the industry to greater heights. There are things that have happened in the tourism sector lately. When we were just coming in, there was a video recording of the King of Toro. The King of Toro did what even Kabarega was not able to do. He climbed up to the summit of Mount Rwenzori. This was not a mean achievement, but for the industry, it was a major breakthrough. The entire media industry from all over the world was there to cover him as he was climbing Mountain Rwenzori. And we are looking for publicity. But there was National Geographic, there was CNN, there was BBC. This one, that King of Toro, is now one of our best allies and partners in driving the message of tourism to the entire world. Can you clap for him, please? Another thing that has happened, I'm just saying this because this is critical and it may be discussed in cabinet, is the issue of sports tourism. Our athletes, whenever there is an international competition, they walk away with gold medals. Cheptai, all those Cheptai. You know what I'm talking about. Cheptegei, Chemtai. Once you hear Che, you know. And I can tell you this is being discussed everywhere in the world. What is it that enables these guys to win gold medals? There is the High Altitude Center in Kapchorwa, where training is ideal for securing gold medals. And I can tell you this has put us on the world map, because whenever they run, Uganda is there. Whenever they announce gold medal, Uganda is there. And people are saying we must go to Uganda to see how all this is being manufactured. Can you imagine manufacturing gold medals? Number 3 is this nyege thing, which has attracted a lot of interest. I had never seen so many lorries and buses of Kenyans entering Uganda. I had never seen so many Americans gathered in one place in Uganda. I had never seen so many Australians. I had never seen so many Nigerians gathered. Nyege. Now people are looking for this spot they call Itanda. Itanda Falls. When you go to Google, you see the searches for Itanda Falls. Now we need to take advantage of this. And I thought I would take, Honorable Minister, advantage of your presence here with Honorable Time to talk about these things and tell, so that you can be in a position to tell government that we should be ready for an avalanche of visitors that are likely to be coming here to see what is happening in Uganda, courtesy of those 3 major events that have lately taken place in our country. Thank you very much for honoring us with your presence. And all of you, I wish you a happy Tourism Day and request you to work harder to chape kazi and work faster, so that tomorrow we can all be able to celebrate in a much better way World Tourism Day. I thank you.
We thank you so much, Honorable Daudi Migereko, Chairman, Uganda Tourism Board, for that passion and also for summing it up so well for the many presentations we had this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, World Tourism Day is still on. We have a very... Okay, I think the honorables are still conferring a little bit. We have a very long day that will take us right through to the night. But now, with the end of this particular session, we move into yet another interesting session of the panel discussion, really diving a little bit into the discussion that we've had this morning. In leading us into this, first of all, allow me to appreciate and welcome. I did see the president of Uganda Tourism Association, Bwana Herbert Byaruhanga. You came in, and welcome you. Thank you for coming. Yes, I also saw the head of Auto, Madame Sivi. Is she still around? She must be around. I did see Uhoa, Executive Director. Uhoa is very much around. You're most welcome. Executive Director, Uganda Community Tourism Association as well is around. You're most welcome. And then, of course, the Safari Guides Association is here, much represented. We welcome you and thank you for coming. Waki, I did see Waki, those responsible for the conference tourism, Uganda Association for Conference Tourism. Yes, they are around, I know, and we welcome them as well. Tugata is very much around. The travel agents are very much around. Madame Paul, thank you for coming to join us. Yes, the Executive Director of Uganda Wildlife Authority is very much around. Most welcome, sir, for being with us, Mr. Mwanda. And the Executive Director of Uganda Wildlife Education Center as well is with us. Thank you very much for joining us. I did see the chair of Uganda Wildlife Research and Training Institute, Madam, you're most welcome. Thank you for coming and joining us. And that Executive Director of Ngamba, Chimpanzee Island, you're most welcome as well. Thank you, Doctor, for joining us. I will be, yes, I see also the principal of the Hotel and Tourism Training Institute, Madam Miriam. Thank you for joining us. Did I see Mr. Nuanyanzi somewhere as well? For the art and craft, you're most welcome. Thank you for joining us in this meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like now to invite our Director of Tourism, Mr. Basil Ajar, to come and lead us in the next part of this discussion, where we're going to have a panel discussion followed by an interesting exchange with you all. Basil Ajar, you're most welcome, sir.
Thank you so much, our chief guest in absentia, Honorable Frank Tumembaze, Honorable Minister of Tourism, Honorable Tom Butime, also in absentia, our Permanent Secretary, and staff of the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, the Deputy Country Representative, UNDP, all our invited guests, in your various capacities, you're most welcome. We are here to celebrate the World Tourism Day, and it's a day that we need to associate with so much. As we said, it is being commemorated everywhere. Internationally, we are talking about rethinking tourism. Ladies and gentlemen, our speakers, especially the chief guest and the keynote speaker, who came here, we're already delving into the matters of rethinking tourism. Because when you are rethinking tourism, is anchored on innovation, is anchored on building resilience, and is anchored on how we quickly adapt the changing situations. Because we are saying tourism is so fragile, it will respond immediately to changes in the environment. We must be innovative and resilient if we are to rethink tourism. Now we are going to the details of the discussion, and we have a panel of 5 experts that will come here and talk on the details of how best can we rethink tourism. I'm going to invite my panelists, and first we have Claire Mugabe, who is the marketing manager at Uganda Tourism Board. Claire has a wide experience in communication and marketing. Her major job actually is marketing Uganda as the #1 tourism destination. If you don't know what she does, just summarize it that she has the task of marketing Uganda as the #1 tourism destination. She brings lots of experience. She worked in the banking sector. She worked in actually Uganda Diamond Trust Bank. She worked in Bank of Africa and many other institutions. Let's give her a round of applause, please. Claire, you're welcome. Our second person who's coming to discuss is Richard Kawere. Richard is the Chief Executive Officer for Uganda Tourism Association. Richard heads the technical operation at the private sector tourism organization in Uganda, and is an expert in tourism, hospitality, planning, development, and policy development. He has led teams in many places, including advocacy. He's also a lecturer at Makerere University Business School at the Faculty of Tourism, Hospitality Management, and Languages. Let's welcome Richard. You're most welcome. We have our panelists also coming from WWF, World Wildlife Foundation, in the names of Paul Hatanga. Is the coordinator at the Virunga Landscape at WWF. Paul has worked greatly to coordinate the partner institutions that promote the Greater Virunga transboundary landscape to see how countries can work together in managing transboundary ecosystems. And he has lots of experience, especially in areas of climate financing, to the extent that he was greatly involved in setting up the Uganda Biodiversity Fund. You're most welcome, Paul. We have Dr. Abe Mutumba, who is a lecturer at Makerere University Business School. Abe is a trainer. He develops training materials. He's a mentor. He does project evaluation. And he has worked widely with different government institutions, including Ministry of Tourism. He has done consultancy, Ministry of Trade, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Health, among others. He has also rendered services out to Uganda, especially in Kenya and in India. Dr. Abe, you're most welcome. I also have a panelist coming from Private Sector Foundation Uganda. Do we have the panelists from Private Sector Foundation Uganda? Don't be worried that there's no extra chair. If you are there, please come in front. We shall provide for you a seat. Okay, so these are our panelists, ladies and gentlemen. They are here to discuss rethinking tourism, which is actually the theme of today's celebration. And when we think tourism, we need to think definitely outside the box. You had people talking passionately about tourism here, meaning that is everybody's business. It has evolved from previously being a preserve of the few people to the extent that now all of us are involved actually in one way or the other in promoting tourism or creating the different products that's needed. I want to start with you, Claire. Your job is to promote this country as the #1 destination. And you have heard from here, we are saying we greatly benefit from the wildlife tourism, the products, largely gorilla tourism. But when we rethink tourism, we need to think of the wider products, not only gorilla, because as we talk now, close to about 70% of the income which is generated is from the gorilla tourism. How is Uganda Tourism Board planning to diversify the products of tourism in this country?
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Claire Mugabe is my name, Marketing Manager, Uganda Tourism Board, here to represent our CEO, Ms. Lilia Jarova. I'll start by mentioning that the tourism market is not a homogeneous market. By homogeneous, we mean that it is not true that people want to have the same experiences when they come to Uganda or when domestic travelers go around the different destinations that we have. Therefore, it's incumbent upon the tourism board to invest in market research to be able to identify the shifts in tastes and preferences of our different target markets so that we go about developing customized products that resonate with both their current needs and the future needs of the different audiences. Tourism value is also derived from spend and stay. We can only derive revenue from tourism if people come and stay longer in Uganda and if they spend more in Uganda. If you don't have a diversified tourism product offering, it is not possible for someone to stay 14 days when they're just tracking gorillas or having safari experiences. Therefore, we've gone ahead to work with the private sector because, as you're aware, yes, tourism is government-led, but it is mainly driven by the private sector. So we work with the private sector, first of all, to conduct research to identify what are some of those experiences that appeal to the domestic market, the regional markets, and the international markets. For a long time, before COVID happened to us, we were trying to drive to get Ugandans to visit national parks. But we had not taken the time to understand what sort of experiences Ugandans want to have around the national parks. So when we did research, we found out that we needed to Ugandanize the experiences that people have when they go to the national parks. That is why you saw a lot of private sector operators invest in Ugandanizing experiences around the parks. They put up silent discos in the national parks because for a true Ugandan, for them to know that they are enjoying tourism, it must come with their drink and their music and maybe some meat. So we are working with the private sector to make sure that we curate experiences that resonate with the tastes and preferences of the different stakeholders or sectors that segments of the travelers that we are targeting. When you look at the African market, for example, Nigerians, it's difficult to get Nigerians to go to the parks. They have been going to Dubai, that is their favorite destination, for shopping and luxury accommodation. So for us as Uganda, if you are to tap into that market, it's imperative that we develop products that resonate with the tastes and preferences of that market. Same with the international markets. For a long time in memorial, we know that international travelers have always had an inclination towards primate tourism, but now we've seen them demand culture tours. So the work of the tourism board is to work with the private sector and the different stakeholders, like I mentioned at the beginning, to invest in research to identify what sort of experiences people would want to have in Uganda. And so that we've gone ahead to work with the private sector and our different partners to develop various products around sports tourism, so that we position Uganda as the go-to destination for sports tourism, religious tourism. A lot of people come into the country to partake in the Martyrs' Day. As the tourism board, we want to develop different products around religious tourism so that people don't only come into the country on Martyrs' Day, but for us to have pilgrims coming into the country every day, same way you see people going to Israel or Rome throughout the course of the year. Marine tourism is another area of diversification that we are looking into to develop a product around there so that people come and enjoy marine experiences, adventure tours. We have a lot of products around adventure, mountaineering, ziplining, name it. So our job is to see that these products are developed in partnership with the different stakeholders. And again, in the purview of our mandate is encouraging investment in tourism. Uganda Tourism Board does not develop physical products. We are supposed to work with the private sector and other partners to encourage tourism investment in our sector. So our job is to profile the different bankable projects of investment and pitch them to the various potential domestic, regional, and international visitors with the objective for them to invest in those projects so that we diversify our product. When you have a diversified product, like I mentioned at the beginning, we'll have more people coming into, first of all, be able to tap into an increased array of market segments, because people want different products. Secondly, you're going to get people to stay in Uganda for longer. When someone stays longer, they spend more in the country. The other element as we rethink tourism is the element of repeat travels. You can only get people coming into the country repeatedly if they have different experiences. So we are working with the different operators and stakeholders to see that we have various products. The other element is about rethinking tourism around product offering is venturing very big into business tourism, which is MICE. That is the acronym for meetings, incentives, and events. As the tourism board, for a very long time, we've been focusing on attracting leisure travelers. Right now, we are working with WAKI, which is the Association for Business Travel, to see that we position Uganda as a destination of choice for meetings, businesses, conferences, and events. And we've, as a country, we've been able, to that effect, to attract hosting of big conferences like the Africa Society for Blood Transfusion that we're going to be hosting in 2024. 2023, we have the G77, plus a couple of others that we've been bidded for. So there has been a lot of innovation in that area so that we diversify our product offering. The other element that I will conclude with in that area is that of virtual tours. There is a new trend of people wanting to experience things without literally experiencing them. And a lot of destinations have innovatively tapped into that space by creating virtual tours. The tourism board is also looking into that so that we create virtual tours of the various experiences that we have in the country so that people are able to virtually immerse themselves in the different experiences without actually coming to Uganda. That is intended to compel people, give them, make them aware of what we have as a country, but then also to compel them to pick interest into visiting the country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Claire. Yes, we can clap for her. She did good. Richard, I'm borrowing directly from the words used by Claire. I'm actually learning also new words. Ugandanize. So we want to Ugandanize our products. And she says also that as Uganda Tourism Board, they encourage investment, the private sector investment in tourism. We know that the tourism sector is private sector driven. What plan do we have to expand the private sector investment so that we Ugandanize the products and attract most of these people to utilize the different services we have?
Thank you, the moderator, the director, the members, and my fellow panelists. How do we Ugandanize? What strategies do we have to Ugandanize? Well, there are quite a number of things we could be able to pick on from here. Before I jump into there are certain key things that I thought would be important. From a private sector perspective, importantly, as said, private sector drives this sector. There are key fundamental things that should be available for private sector to be able to drive and come to the Ugandanization. And the three key things are the policy environment that allows the private sector to do business. The other one is the infrastructure, and then the government core investment. Once those are available, the private sector picks on from there. How do you Ugandanize these products? Tourism, as my sister said, is a variation of experiences targeting different clientele. Our discussions have been largely on the attraction of the foreign visitor, which is very, very important to us as private sector, because a foreign visitor may be worth four or five times more valuable to a private sector business than a domestic clientele. But the domestic clientele sustains businesses in times of, especially in times of, tourism businesses is in cycles. So meaning that we need to have strategies that target both. The one who contributes a high proportion in terms of value, and the people who stabilize or sustain our businesses. I want to pick it on from when we talk about sports. My challenge is, yes, we have seen the chaps my honorable colleagues talked about, especially people from Kapchora, marketing us on the international market. Very good. We have a low-hanging fruit in Uganda that is very rooted and well attached to the communities, that if we build on, would be able to generate momentum of movement of people domestically. And this is not far away. If you're talking about sports investment, talk about football. How much money do we invest? How do we, as a tourism sector, relate with these people to generate that kind of movement? So there are certain low-hanging fruits that we need to pick on. As private sector, there has been movement, there has been a lot of investment from the private sector people into this kind of, I would call them, in the entire tourism value chain. When they build lodges, they have put investment. When they are able to bring transportation, they have put investment. When they build sports facilities, they have put investment. Now, how do we, as a tourism sector, seated here, relate with those investors to be able to generate movement, momentum, that will now fill our properties, that will now create value for our people? That is where I would pick on from there. But currently, right now, you can't speak of our current environment minus relating it to the current situation. Our current situation has been that businesses should first stabilize, stability of business, coming off from the COVID. They're stabilizing. What do they need to stabilize? Some investment, appreciation of new technologies, different ways of doing business, so that they can be able to now come up and be able to plug into this big picture that we are talking about in terms of attracting both the domestic and foreign investor. Basically, that is where the private sector picks on from there in terms of how are we able to pick on both this international clientele and the domestic clientele. So that is where we need to, how do we as government and private sector be able to attract both of these clients?
Okay, thank you so much, Richard. Paul, allow me jump you and I go straight to Dr. Mutumba, because I want to tie in the statements which is made by Richard and send straight to Dr. Mutumba, who comes from the academia. Richard talked about the policy environment. He says, when you're asking us, the private sector, to invest, there should be the right policy environment, there should be the right infrastructure, and there should be government co-investment. Now, you're coming from the academia, and when he talks about policy, we know that policy is made based on empirical data. We need empirical data, we need statistics. How is the academia involved? To what extent is academia involved in doing research to inform when the minister is talking here, talking about the gains that we are coming, how we are the tourism sector is really rebounding. The sector sometimes suffer from lack of data to make decisions, to build on policy, to support the sector. To what extent and how are you as academic institution working hard to address this gap? Dr. Abe Mutumba, yes.
Thank you, moderator. Thank you, moderator. And I would also like to thank the ministry for inviting us from the academia to co-contribute, to co-develop the solutions, the homegrown solutions through rethinking tourism. Like Richard has said, the policy environment will affect the public sector's contribution to revamping competitiveness, inclusion and sustainability of Uganda's tourism. In sports tourism, events tourism, nature tourism, and the rest. So what are we doing? To what extent? Right now, for example, most universities, Makerere, with this child MOOCs, Busitema University, Chambogo University, we are working with government through an initiative funded by government called the Research and Innovation Fund. Under the Research and Innovation Fund, there is a thematic area specifically for tourism development. Personally, I've worked on a project called Nation Branding Through Tourism. We visited and collected data from most of the major national parks, although we didn't go into the events. And the data is available. We disseminated. So, like Honorable Frank Tumwebaze, Honorable Migereko, Honorable Butime, and the other previous speakers have said, we can market Uganda, we can brand Uganda through tourism. And the study has been done. That is at the extent of public-private, public-government-university partnership through the REEF Fund. I've just reviewed some proposals from Busitema University. And at Busitema University, about 3 studies are being done to see how our parks, our conservation areas can be conserved. So universities, not only Makerere, MOOCs, Busitema, and Chambogo, are conducting studies, but the question is dissemination. Because sometimes these studies stay in the libraries, in the ivory towers. I'll talk for MUBS, where I come from. We are moving away from that. Together with my colleagues in the Faculty of Tourism, Hospitality, and Languages. In the 2 course units which I teach, which is strategic management and then seminar series, just a few weeks ago, we've just done a dissemination, not a dissemination, a stakeholder consultation workshop. And it was on the theme of rethinking tourism policy making. And my students, our students, conducted literature reviews, triangulated data, and came up with policy gaps and policy opportunities. They stated their opportunities, shared with stakeholders whom I'm seeing present here, and showed the policy directions based on evidence that need to be taken. For example, the students revealed that there was need for cities to become more smart and be ready for urban tourism. Another student shared his topic was about tourism beyond wildlife. Another one was talking about MICE readiness for meeting instead business tourism. And these findings were disseminated. However, these students are going to graduate very soon. I told them, I'm going to follow you even after graduation, wherever you will work. But that is a small extent. I think the ministry should even go beyond the dissemination and engage these together. Not only that, in the Faculty of Tourism, Hospitality, and Languages, we are moving from knowledge telling, brainwash education, to knowledge transformation, and we are using storytelling and case studies, whereby we are getting the positive side of the tourism products we have in our country, use them for teaching and examination. For example, many people in Uganda think that the moment you go to Busoga, you find jiggers, poor people, people who understand at 45. Through knowledge transformation, they can learn that there is not anywhere close to the truth, and they learn the positive side, so that next time Nyege is taking place, they are like, wow, we need to reach Ginger. That is knowledge transformation. So the other one was research and innovation government. Then in our thesis, actually in our PhD programs at MUBS, you don't pass your PhD if the policy implications are not clear. And policy implications at MUBS is not just you mentioning that they should do this. You first tell us the existing policy, progress made, the policy gaps, the policy opportunities, and who should do what, when, and what should be your role as the one who is recommending. So there is progress being made, and however, it's not good enough for this to be made by a few universities. It should be a national policy. Our universities should not be paid, funded for just producing many graduates. We should also be accounted, we should account for research and innovation in our teaching and policy contribution to national development.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mutumba. Members, let's give him a round of applause. He has a message for us that the university is doing lots of research, but it's incumbent upon us, both private sector and government institution, to use. When he talks about dissemination, that means research should be done, but it should be utilized by the final person out there. So it's important that you touch base with Dr. Mutumba. I come close to Paul. WWF, we know you are a development partner, or in that case, an NGO, which is deeply involved in environmental protection. And we know you're doing a lot of work in the Rwenzori area in trying to protect the environment. Are you winning the war? How do we come into support? Because when you're talking about conservation, when you're talking about wildlife products, we need to conserve what we have.
Thank you very much. I think what you raise is critical for development partners, right? And development partners like WWF, having been in the country for quite a number of years, over the years, there's also been learning of lessons. And learning of lessons is informed by, what is unique about the intervention that the institution wants to do. WWF is guided by its mission, and the mission in Uganda is, a low carbon economy. But how do we achieve this low carbon economy with protection and sustainable management of the incredible resources that we have? And of course, Rwenzori is one of them. I think the Honorable Daudi mentioned how unique Rwenzori is. WWF has invested in this region for quite a number of years. Uganda Wildlife Authority is a critical partner for us. So beyond the beauty that we see in the wildlife, there is also beauty in the landscapes. There is a beauty in the glaciers. There is beauty in the experience of getting up to the mountain. But we've also been thinking as WWF, how do we support the initiatives of Uganda Tourism Board, of Uganda Wildlife Authority, to diversify beyond what is obvious? And so one of the unique things most recently we've been looking at is actually supporting the communities adjacent to this protected area. We've partnered with local community-based organizations to develop a product called From the Garden to the Cup. And From the Garden to the Cup is a coffee experience, because Rwenzori is really rich as well, not just in the glaciers and the experience, but also in the uniqueness of the agricultural products that come from there. So we should be thinking broadly, beyond just the things that are obvious. What is unique? What can we be able to do as development partners to be able to support this? I also want to mention that as, for example, other development partners, WWF inclusive, we can only be development partners if we work in the interest of the country. And that is critical. Interest of the country means we must be guided by what are the strategic plans, what are the strategic priorities that this country has, what is the strategic plan for the Rwenzori Mountains National Park, and how do we fit in there? And that's how we try to move our bits and pieces. And over time, I could say, I think, and I'll give another example of the mountain gorillas. WWF has been in the mountain gorilla support programs for quite a number of years. International Gorilla Conservation Program, which is a coalition including with WWF. And what we do with IGCP support is, how do we support researchers like him and Institute of Tropical Forest Conservation, which is based in Ibwindi, to actually do the research that is important to inform the product. And of course, the research that's important is, what are the trends in terms of the numbers? What is the issue with the zoonotic diseases? Like we are talking about Ebola right now, we are talking about COVID. What are the best practices that we can get from other places and be able to inform the practice that we are doing? So I think as development partners, it's not one, we are not sealed in a box. We think about what is the strategic direction of the country, of the critical partners that we work with, Uganda Wildlife Authority, the National Forest Authority, the local governments, and the communities adjacent to these areas. I would mention one last thing. I think as we think about increasing participation, I I come from Kisoro, and Kigezi Expo has just been there. But I can tell you, very few people have had an experience visiting these parks or the gorillas and actually seeing them. I think we have a challenge to how do we domesticate, Ugandanize, I think that was the word. How do we Ugandanize this to local? And local must also be defined. You know, local has a scale, right? There's local Ugandan who is Paul Hatanga working here in Kampala. He's local, but there's local down on the ground, right? How do we Ugandanize tourism that when you know, external tourists are going to these places, how do we Ugandanize that they actually gain the benefits and the experiences? And that's one thing that we really want to challenge everyone in the sector. Benefit distribution, right? Employment. As a private sector, how do you Ugandanize that experience to the locals that they actually start to benefit from the employment? And that's a challenge to all of us. Development partners, if you're thinking about WWF, does WWF draw its employees from the local or Uganda Life Authority or the rest? How do we Ugandanize the experience that we can actually be able to speak more confidently about it? And I think just to sum it up, I think development partners, critical, protection, we want to see more distribution of benefits, but we are also committed to the long-term strategic direction of the responsible bodies.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Paul. Talking about local engagement. I hope it doesn't rub some people the wrong way. I know there are people who don't want to be local, but we can say domestic. I think that one is also okay. But you talk about community products. And when you talk about one of the community products that recently came, you talked about from garden to the cup. And here you were referring to coffee. And I cannot resist introducing one person here when you talk about coffee. There's a gentleman who promotes coffee passionately. I was seated with him one time in the restaurant and I said, "Can I have a cup of tea?" He said, "No, Basil, why not a cup of coffee?" He's here, called Joseph Nkado. Joseph, you're most welcome. He's the CEO of New Cafe. So Paul here is helping you promote coffee. If you didn't know him, please mark him and get your number. I know you're very passionate about coffee. Allow me also to introduce Mr. Lewis, who stepped out, I think, now briefly. Lewis is coming from the European Union. He's the program manager for sustainable development. Lewis, happy having you, and he has gone for coffee, you see. He's also a very passionate person. Now, these are people I could not resist introducing when you talked about coffee, Ugandan coffee. And for real, that is a product that we should be promoting. Now, back to you, Claire. I want to tie it from where Paul stopped. Because Paul said we recently have the Kigezi Expo, and in his view, the local experience was really not adequate. And I know Uganda Tourism Board has a duty of promoting this country. And the feedback we get is that the expos probably is getting out of fashion. And I'm happy you talked about mice, that new word mice. And also there's a feeling that this conventional flyers, where we print flyers and distribute, it is expensive and getting outdated. People are moving to digital promotion. Now my question to you is, how are we innovatively changing to reach out to the market, speak to the current and the tourists of these days who really are getting digital? Claire.
Thank you very much. Before I talk about expos, I think I need to provide a background to the things that inform our strategy right now post-COVID. Post-COVID, a lot of people realized with COVID that with life, nothing is guaranteed and that you live once. So because of that, there is a new craze in tourism called revenge travel. A lot of people worldwide, even in the domestic market, are revenging on COVID and the impact it had on everyone. That is why you see even Ugandans have tapped into that craze During the day, they complain about the economy, but over the weekend, they are in the bars causing inflation and enjoying the Pearl of Africa. So as the tourism board, those are some of the things that have informed our marketing strategy. We are also informed by the fact that research has shown that people no longer want to travel to destinations to enjoy products. People come for experiences. Even when you walk into any banking hall right now, for any bank that is thinking very forward, they no longer have customer service or customer care desks. Now they have customer experience departments or desks. Everyone is thinking customer experiences. So as we develop our marketing strategy, we are revising our marketing mix, destination marketing mix, to make sure that as products for the country, we sell experiences and not products. Then we've gone ahead to segment our markets. I mentioned from the beginning that the biggest problem is treating a market as one homogeneous market. We've segmented our markets to understand that we have domestic travelers who want different products, regional and international. And even within domestic travelers, we have different sub-segments of domestic travelers. The expatriates that want different experiences, corporate travelers that want different experiences, families, honeymooners, even a woman in Nakasero market. How do we take tourism to them so that they don't think that traveling around Uganda is for a foreigner? So some of the things that we've done are addressing the two target markets that we are looking at. As you're aware, Uganda Tourism Board does not sell tourism directly. We work with the private sector, who are the drivers of tourism. So our marketing strategy is two-pronged. We target our distribution channel, which is the private sector, the hoteliers, the tour operators, travel agents, and then the consumers. With the consumers, our strategies are to stimulate demand. Simple economics teaches us that supply follows demand. We must stimulate demand by, first of all, creating visibility for Destination Uganda to Ugandans regionally and also internationally. To that end, as we rethink tourism, the first thing that we did this year was to rebrand Destination Uganda. We've rebranded Destination Uganda to Explore Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. That is our new destination brand, and that is how we are taking our product, which is Destination Uganda, to our various markets. A lot of people were asking the Uganda Tourism Board, why Explore Uganda? Why not Visit? Visit was pre-COVID. As we rethink tourism, we must go for powerful calls to action. When you tell someone, come and visit Uganda, they are going to come to Uganda for 2 days and basically scratch the surface of what we have to offer as the Pearl of Africa. But if you implore potential travelers to explore the Pearl of Africa, that is the most powerful call to action that implores people to come and stay longer in Uganda or come again so that you stimulate repeat visits, because as a country we have so much to offer. So that is one of the things that we started with, to repackage Uganda and communicate a new offering, new experiences to our target travelers so that they come and experience them. We've taken that brand to various markets, and just like Honorable Minister mentioned, we've won a lot of accolades with that new brand and the messaging and the new promise, which is positioning Uganda as the destination of choice in Africa. And with our new brand, we are promising people an adventure of a lifetime in Uganda, unmatched experiences, known products. That is one of the things that we've done. We've also optimized our presence digitally. I think all of you in this room know the power of digital marketing, social media. It has now surpassed the power of traditional channels. So as UTB, we've invested in optimizing our digital presence. We've rebranded our website, the look and feel, the things that you're communicating there, the information that you get about the different experiences that you have to offer. We've also put links that link you to UHOA or OTO, to the different private sector associations, where you get now information about the different packages that we do have. And speaking about digital rethinking tourism in the digital space, we will also very soon be investing in developing a destination app. Many of you have apps like WhatsApp, different apps on your phone. We want to create an app which is a one-stop center to access information pertaining to the destination. Whether you want to book a trip to Uganda, or you want to know the different things that we have in the country to offer, how to travel to Uganda, where to go, how to get there, how much it costs, all that information is going to be on that app when we finally have it. It is one of the things that we are working on. Like I said, we have two segments of people that we target. There is a consumer, and there is the people that sell travel. Expos are not really outdated because it is one of the platforms that helps us to interface with the people that can actually sell our country. That is the tour operators and the top-tier Africa selling specialists that we target from the international markets and the regional markets. So we must continue to participate in expos physically if the marketing environment allows. Like we have Powate coming up in February next year, which event gives us a platform to bring in people that sell tourism. So we must continue to participate in expos, but they have to be augmented by other strategies that are going to stimulate demand through the things that I've talked about. We are working with bloggers and influencers. The other year you saw us appoint Cheptegei as a tourism ambassador, Eddie Kenzo, different persons of influence, so that we tap into their personal brands to spread word about Uganda and that we are indeed the Pearl of Africa. So we're deploying a lot of different things to target consumers, but then there is also special vehicles that encourage B2B engagements. That is engagements between our tour operators and potential buyers and sellers of our destination. Expos is one of them. We also identify buyers from the different countries and bring them on what we call familiarization trips. These trips are intended to expose people to what experiences we have in the country, take them around, full board experiences, so that you expose them to the very best in terms of what you have to offer as a country, with the objective that when they go back, they start to include Uganda on their itineraries. So our strategy is two-pronged. We target the end consumer, who is the traveler, but then also the people that sell travel through different avenues. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Claire. I now know why you're a marketing manager. And I'm learning many words every time you talk. Revenge travel.
Yep.
Because life is lived once. Revenge evening sittings. Is that what you're saying? Because life is lived once. And we have been told that we are sitting here till late, but we hope we shall be revenging also for lunch and other things. Now, this is important. You talked about we have ambassadors. We sell experiences, not strictly product. That means once I visit the place, the experience should bring me back. Thank you for that. As you were explaining all those marketing strategies, we received the Honorable Member of Parliament from Muheju constituency, who is also a Member of Parliament, who is also a member of the Sectoral Committee of Tourism and Trade Committee in the Parliament of Uganda, and I think is the Shadow Minister of Tourism. Honorable Mwejukwe, you're most welcome. We are here celebrating the World Tourism Day, and this type of sitting is everywhere in all parts of the world, and the theme for the day is Rethinking Tourism. When you're rethinking tourism, there are anchors. We're talking about building resilience, we are talking about innovations, and we are talking about looking at things in different perspectives. You're most welcome. So we are. I will come next to Richard. You mentioned to us the fundamentals that should be done when we are to attract private sector into investing in tourism, and you highlighted policy, infrastructure, co-investment from government, and also told us the areas that you have started investment as private sector. We know obviously there are many pressing issues that affect the private sector players when you are investing in the tourism sector. What are those private and very pressing issues that requires intervention of state? There are those ones that obviously is very expensive and takes a long time, but what are the low-hanging fruits? What are those areas that you think government can jump in and quickly we can see results from a private sector perspective?
Thank you, moderator. What are those key? One of the things, the most important things is that when you are constrained with resources, the strategy is how do we, when you're constrained, when you have a constraint of resources, the most important thing is how do you, how do we as players in the sector work together? How do we align our resources for a better good? There has never been a situation where there is abundance of resources. In the existence of minimal resources, how do we align ourselves for a better good? So how does government, I think, align the little resources it has with private sector for us to have a better or a slightly much better outcome? For me, that is where we would be able to discuss. And there are things we have been able to discuss, not in this, only in this forum, but in very many forums. But allow me to, I did not, in the first thing, we did not understand what the Uganda Tourism Association exists for a common voice. And when it exists for this common voice, we bring this common voice for key issues like this. For example, if we are talking about destination branding and destination marketing, how does the private sector and the government align the little resources for a better outcome? That is where now we should put a more bigger emphasis. How do we align our small resources? We have the private sector people who continuously, privately or independently or jointly sell the destination. Now the question is, we need to sit on a round table. That is now where the advocacy, that's where now UTA becomes extremely very relevant. How do you sit on a round table if we have $10,000 and use it to make something much bigger? Definitely investing in destination marketing is critically key. Why? Because for us to drive continuous investment in tourism, we must demonstrate volumes of travelers coming. The volume of travelers and the value of those travelers will trigger more investment and more employment. So how do we align our resources for this better good? And that is for me where we are. How do we continuously engage to be able to align our little resources? How do we co-market in the common selected destinations? One of the biggest challenges we have is sometimes when we have a thin budget, we spread it so far. You want to be in this market, you want to be in the other market, you want to be in this market. Yes. But what are those key markets that can give us a quick return on investment is what we need to be able to harmonize out and be able to follow up on that. So destination marketing should be a key priority. The other one is, I liked the statement of Honorable Frank of saying that now they have realized that actually tourism has the highest value chain. If you have your chicken and there's no tourism, you can't sell it. So as government and other stakeholders are lobbying for a joint common voice to attract more resources. Currently, without missing my words, the current investment in tourism is actually very minimal. It goes to what? Routine expenditure. We have not moved to that stage where we have got a capital development budget for tourism that we know this is how much we need to invest. So we need to prioritize and work with these colleagues of ours to lobby for more investment into tourism. The other thing that is very important where we can be able to put some level of emphasis is in a common investment fund that will enable a multiple of the private sector to be able to utilize this fund and to create more visibility. When you have, if UTB can't go to this market, can we have private sector people go to that market. Now, we cannot say government will be able to put all that money, but how do we work with private sector to have a collective fund that is contributory, so that we use that fund purposely on some of these kind of some kind of these either expos or markets where maybe government cannot reach. I am benchmarked this on many occasions. I have related and worked with my colleagues in Kenya, KTF, Kenya Tourism Federation. They actually do it. We need that. We need to move to that discussion of that joint common fund that can help push the investment or engagement of private sector. Other key issues is how do we harness key issues of environment? The president has been clear on key issues of environment. Environment affects our destination brand. So, how do we conserve, harness, and invest in the key, in the environmental key issues that we have at hand, preserve those that we have, and actually make them of use. So in terms of where do we put our minimal resources? Critically, one is destination marketing. Two, we need some level of professionalism, which comes to skills development in our sector. Tourism has come to the table in a couple of the last 4 or 5 years, critically, when it started posting. But the growth of the industry is not matching the human resource needs. Whereas we may have training institutions, where I come from, partly, these training institutions have not been given their capacity in terms of what they need to produce a first-class person to create that experience we are talking about. How do we now, private sector and government, working together, be able to create this kind of professional person that want to create that experience? Because this was a very, I have a sister I have met this morning. She was seated with the Honorable Migereko, and I had to apologize. You heard me apologizing. I met her, we were in one of the top-notch presses here. And it so happened that these sisters of mine, well-positioned, well-profiled people, came and took up some space that had possibly been reserved. So when they took up this space, the staff came and asked them to leave because the space had been reserved. I was touched. I had also reserved some space. So I walked to them and I asked them not to leave. The property is not mine. I asked them not to leave. I volunteered my reserved space so that this business doesn't lose its customers. Then I asked him, you mean in this whole entire building, in this whole entire space, there is no place where you could ask these sisters of mine to relocate? You simply ask them to leave because this place is reserved? Well, that points to so many gaps. We need to align if we are to take care of a first-class leisure tourist. Even, by the way, the low-paying tourists, if you think, they also need a very good experience. And that is very, very important if we are to continuously build our tourism sector, if we are to continuously become a competitive destination. There are very many things we could talk about. Of course, I can't leave out a key issue of an enabling tax regime. You know what happens is that if we tax our private sector excessively, we prevent them from having capital for reinvestment. And even if we're talking of the tourism fund, they will have nothing to put in there. There are certain things we need to to twist a bit. The way we discussed, the way ably Mr. Migereko and team presented the VAT issues, and we got some VAT, we need to see which are those levies, dues that are not necessarily creating value. We streamline them, and we're able now to come back on the table and say we have streamlined this for you private sector. This is an animal in the fund. How do we put their money to address these issues? The professionalism, the HR issues, the destination marketing, the product development, and sometimes the infrastructure. So those are very, very critical for us to be able, in this short period of time, to be able to move our tourism sector to another level.
Thank you so much, Richard. Thank you for the quick briefs on the areas that we can focus, despite our meager resources. I wanted you to emphasize that, and it came out clearly, because in the House, obviously, we have the commissioner responsible for tourism development. We have Claire here and many other areas from the public sector who can pick some of these advice and see how we can advance. Allow me to recognize the presence of Mr. Wilbrod Owor, who is the CEO of Uganda's Bank Association. He's with us here. Wilbrod, you're welcome. We're also happy to be joined by Ms. Olive Lumonya, who is the Deputy CEO for Civil Aviation Authority. Olive, you're most welcome, and feel free wherever you're seated. So we are going we're moving towards the close of this session. I know you're coming to lunchtime, but we want to come to you, Mr. Mutumba, Dr. Mutumba, who is coming from the academia. There's a lot of talk about rethinking tourism, and you cannot help thinking about digital transformation if you are rethinking, because the world is moving digital. And for you from the academia, you talk with empirical data. You do research, you know exactly you do projections, you know if you change this variable, these are likely to be the likely results that we can see. Is Uganda ready? Because Claire here may decide that tomorrow we are going purely digital. Is Uganda ready? Or what do we do to seize the opportunity? From academic perspective, from research information, because you told us you have lots of data there which is not being utilized. Over to you, Dr. Mutumba.
Thank you so much, moderator. Am I clear? Okay. The question is Uganda ready? Mr. Kawera and the colleagues here know that my PhD is in readiness. So you are asking me the right question.
Yeah, I want to tap that directly.
Yeah. Readiness is about willingness and ability. That is at individual level. At organizational level, willingness or motivation and capability. So now it's not ability, it's about capability. So is there capacity and capability in Uganda